for her removal from the board or her stepping down from the board?
I don't know if our team was aware of that or not, but it's my understanding she resigned to take care of her mother, who needs full-time care right now, and so that's fine. We wish her well. There's the governor. I have weekly meetings with all the appointments that we have, and so you're always getting resignations from this board or that board and the different regions, but most people don't realize how many boards and commissions we have and how many appointments the governor has. But we just appointed Katie Quibadoo, who is from Guyman, Oklahoma area. We're really excited for her to be on that board now. Her husband's a public school teacher, and she is specializes in early childhood education. So graduated from Panhandle State. So we're really excited for that part of the state to be represented, and we think she's going to do a really good job, and we wish the other lady well and hope her mother's doing well.
Quick follow-up to the grocery tax question. We asked the pro tem about the same topic yesterday. He said he won't rule it out as part of his tax reform, a grocery tax cut. Do you sense some progress there among senators? Because previously, that's where this bill or effort died in legislation.
The Senate is being very thoughtful about it. They've been studying this since last summer when we called them in for a special session and looking at what they think is the best form. Again, and I say it every time. Big picture here, guys, is we have $4.5 billion in savings. We have $1.1 billion surplus next year. So what are we going to do with that? Do the Oklahoma people want us to take that $1 billion and save it and go to $5.5 billion? We could do that. As a businessman, though, we need about $3.5 billion in savings to weather any kind of economic downturn historically. Okay, because the main thing I want to do is make sure we protect core services. We never have to cut core services. So if we've got that taken care of, then what do? Are there strategic investments? Okay, we can talk about that. Like there's a proposal to put $500 million more in education. So that's good. And we've kept a lot of other budgets flat. Or let's give something back to the taxpayer. The grocery tax is a great idea. I called for 0.75 of a point reduction in income tax. I want to keep the momentum going that we are a very business-friendly state. I don't know if you saw the New York Times article yesterday, but really Oklahoma is getting on the map. This is something I've been working really hard for the last 4 years, is to bring Oklahoma to the world and tell the world about Oklahoma and have them come and set up shop in Oklahoma. This is the right place for manufacturing. This is the right place to raise a family and grow your business and educate your kids. And so we got a lot of great things to sell, and I think we can afford that. I think we can afford any combination of that. But, the legislature puts those bills on my desk, and there's a lot of thought goes into how that comes about. And I set the vision. I talk directly to Oklahomans. Here's what I see. We need to slow the growth of government. I don't want to just continue to raise base level expenses. And then when we do if there is an economic downturn, all of a sudden we've raised our expenses to a high water level that then we have to cut something. And that's bad. That's what was happening before I got into office, is you would have you would kept raising expenses, and with zero savings, as soon as there's a downturn, it's cut time. And that is what I tried to avoid, and we've done a really good job up to this point. And so we always have to be fiscally disciplined.
Governor, I get the sense that being governor is kind of awesome sometimes, and you get to meet different people and have a variety of conversations. And I noticed on your schedule you had a couple meetings this week with, one was with a Harvard law professor who focuses on intellectual property, and then I noticed you had a meeting with Mr. I'll probably butcher his name, Pashayev, who's a banker from Azerbaijan. And I was curious if you could give us a little bit of details of the topics at hand with both of those individuals.
Sure, yeah. Well, first off, the Harvard law professor, Ruth Okadiji, she's been a close personal friend of mine for a long time. Actually went to church with her in Norman at my dad's church when I was in high school growing up. So that's how long I've known her. She graduated from Harvard, and she's Nigerian. She's from Nigeria, and she's fantastic. And she was a professor at OU, and then went to Harvard. And so just stayed in contact with her. I call her, just check in occasionally. She's also just super smart lady if I want to bounce ideas off of her. So that's Ruth. And then the Jamal guy. So when I went to Azerbaijan a couple years ago, met Jamal, had dinner with him there. You know, kind of cousins to the first lady of the country, and you know, when these people come and he's looking at investing in Oklahoma, and so I'm kind of trying to connect him with the private sector. Access to capital is something very important. As we set up these incubators around the state in Oklahoma City and in Norman and in Tulsa, these new startups, you have great young people with great ideas, and they need access to capital. So if we can connect those two things, that is going to let Oklahoma, let some of these business start here from our state. So that's one of the things that we're doing there. And then we set up an MOU with Oklahoma State University. Blaine Arthur went with me on that trip. So we also talked about genetics and the cattle industry and all the great things that our farmers and ranchers and our cattle show. I told them about Cattlemen's Congress that we were able to get here, one of the largest cattle shows. Told them that if they're trying to feed their country, they really need to look at buying some of the cattle from Oklahoma, some of our genetics. And so that was the other thing we talked about. But that was pretty much it. I think about a 30-minute meeting and just kind of another meeting in the day of the life of the governor.
Yeah, just real quick on that, you know, you've also had some conversations, I think, with folks in Qatar about similar questions about investment in America, hopefully, possibly getting that in Oklahoma. How do you balance the sort of civic questions about, you know, Azerbaijan has had some criticisms regarding, you know, its democracy and you know, authoritarian elements of you know, beliefs of the government. I'm not an expert. And then, you know, Qatar has had other issues documented as well. How do you balance that in terms of, is it appropriate for us to try to, you know, get a pipeline of capital infusion from countries where maybe their human rights or, you know, civic processes don't align with what we might think in America would be best practices? Yeah,
well, those are your words, not mine, on what their political leanings are. Basically, you know, when people want to invest in Oklahoma, and we've got companies from out of the country that are investing here, again, they're investing in Oklahoma companies, they're setting up shop, they're hiring Oklahomans, they're following our rules and our laws. This isn't the Communist Party of China, and these are folks that are investing, whether it's Wall Street in New York or in California, and I'm just trying to expose people to, hey, Oklahoma's the next best spot. We're the next Texas. You guys need to get in early. There's an arbitrage in our quality of life and our cost of living and our wages right now. We're still below the medium average in the country. So there's a lot of opportunity for businesses, and people are starting to see it. My job as the chief salesman of the state and the governor is to continue to promote that and tell everybody how great it is in Oklahoma. And again, we can deal with some of that political stuff if we see people being anti-Oklahoma or our traditional family values. But the people that I know, they love what's happening in Oklahoma. We're getting these looks because of our pro-freedom, pro-business policies. They're not looking in California right now because of the over-regulation, the overtaxing. So again, I think we're gonna continue to stand up for our way of life, and I'm going to continue to tell the world how great it is to do business here in Oklahoma. I'm going to continue to try to take every business I can from Texas or California or New York or wherever they're coming from, and that's my job as the governor of Oklahoma.
Yeah, sorry, this microphone's really long and awkward. That's smart. You've spoken a lot about being fiscally prudent with our savings and our surplus. Do you think Oklahoma can afford to make cuts to both the grocery tax and income tax and also fund vouchers or tax credits? I mean, the price tag on that's essentially $300 million. Can we afford to do all of those?
It's a great question, and maybe not. We threw out in my budget. I didn't have $500 million in the education. I had maybe $200 million. That's what the legislature is going to have to work on, because constitutionally we have to have a balanced budget. And when we look at the BOE meetings, and then we can spend 95% of whatever our projected revenue is, that's what we're going to have to do. But I'm just telling you, I don't want to raise government. The big picture here is let's give this back to the consumer, the taxpayer, and that will actually increase our tax base. So whether it's a grocery tax or it's an income tax or it's a combination thereof or it's a moratorium on grocery tax just till we get inflation under control. There's a lot of different ways that we could look at that. And then, you know, if the Senate goes along with the House or they come up to an agreement on the education piece, we may not be able to do all of that I projected in the state of the state. So great catch. You know, well, first off, I think the school choice bill is fantastic. I think that will unlock a tremendous amount of more schools and more options for parents. So I certainly want to prioritize that. And again, our estimates, it's about 200 and something million. I think on the high side, they're saying 300 million. But when you think about us putting $3.8 billion in education, which will be the most ever, it's going to be a huge increase, plus the ad valorem piece, putting $216 million or $250 million in a scholarship or a tax credit for a parent is really a small amount when you think about the overall amount that we invest in public education. So that's why I think it makes sense to do something also for some of those parents that maybe feel trapped or they're in a school system where for whatever reason, their kids, they just think there's a better opportunity for them. They're being bullied or it doesn't have the programs they want or whatever the reason. It's a very, very small amount. And we're trying to be very thoughtful to make sure we protect all of our rural schools, our public schools, put that money in there, give our teachers another pay raise. So I think I'd prioritize that. And then on the tax side, I'm going to let the legislature figure out what's best, but we certainly need to do something. We can't just spend the rest of that money. So thank you all so much. We'll see you in here next Friday.